Call to order the Lincoln City City Council meeting of April 15th, 2019 at 5 p.m. Roll call, please.
Dick Anderson.
Yes.
Judy Casper. Here. Deanna Hinton. Here. Riley Hoagland. Diane Coos.
Present.
Rick Mark.
I'm here.
And Mitch Parsons.
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
One of the problems with starting an hour earlier is we throw off the public, and I'm going to call for see if anybody wants public comment. Now would be the time, but seeing familiar faces. The other is I would like to remind and hope everyone has got their tax statements postmarked by now. Too late. Now, other than that, we have a short agenda tonight. Mr. Chandler, you asked to have a little special time?
I did. Last night, I had the great pleasure of being in attendance where this video was filmed, and I wanted to show this to you.
Okay.
3 minutes.
All right.
Residents and visitors to guide them in what became their first ever cohesive branding for the city. Their Finders Keepers program was their first marketing endeavor to receive a year-long marketing support based on the new brand. Launched in October 2018, the Random Acts of Kindness campaign celebrates 20 years of visitors finding glass floats placed on their shores. In addition, they made a slight change to their Finders Keepers program. What used to be a shoulder season campaign will now be a year-round campaign, giving their summer month visitors the chance to experience the signature treasure hunt. The performance of this campaign was, and continues to be, nothing short of phenomenal. Of the 672 floats found so far, 77% were registered by visitors that traveled more than 50 miles from Lincoln City. In answer to the old marketing campaign question, yeah, but does it have legs? The answer goes beyond 2018 as they are seeing endless ways to use it to bring their new brand to life. If you've never been inspired by construction paper to travel to the coast, you haven't seen this. Citywide brand, we present the Oregon Tourism Digital Marketing Award to explore Lincoln City.
Apologize that was just a film done on a phone, but on the 22nd in our meeting, Ed and his staff will be here to formally present it to you. I wanted to tell you about it today for two reasons. the press release is out and the word is out, and I didn't want you to be the last ones to hear about it. And this is just too good news to keep in.
That's right.
And so I'm just really, really proud of Ed and his staff, and the fact that for a city of 8,000 people to be recognized by Oregon Tourism for our branding campaign is pretty awesome.
That is great. And I'll be sure to share with Ed, because as I talk to more and more people, I continue to hear how the octopus is actually growing on folks.
Octopus has legs.
Has legs. You know, it's folks who were pretty disgruntled at the start, or as we concluded made the decisions, I guess. They've come around, so there is something about time and presentation. So.
Mr. Mayor, one final thing. When Eric Johnson, who attends the trade shows on our behalf, goes, this is the new backdrop that they use for that, and it's built from the Finders Keepers program and marketing, and what you saw was created on the video.
That's great. Great. Thank you very much for sharing. All right. We have tonight one topic. This is special order of business, economic development, new urban renewal areas. Allison and Elaine, I assume you both can just recap for us and remind us where we were and are and what we have going forward.
With the octopus here.
Yeah. Yeah, don't let the octopus.
Those are beautiful floats.
Yeah.
I think there's a few slides in the beginning here. Mr. Chandler, you want to?
So, Mr. Mayor, I wanted to start this by talking a little bit about that recap that you mentioned, by first beginning what is the objective of the staff in our presentation to you tonight. And that is to maximize the revenue that can be generated by creating urban renewal districts and use that revenue to fund the goals and the projects of those districts. Now, it's really important, as I have visited with many of you and residents that have been watching and observing what we've been doing, to identify what it is that you're actually deciding tonight, or we hope you're deciding tonight, and what you are not deciding tonight. You have one decision, and that is how to begin. Okay? What you're not deciding tonight, next, is you're not identifying the stakeholder values, issues, or needs. You're not creating a plan that includes a list of projects. You're not deciding on the maximum revenue and the maximum indebtedness, and you're not deciding to form urban renewal districts. All of that will actually come later, and Allison and Elaine will now go through really the decision that you have before you tonight.
Elaine brought up one more point that's on the you're not needing to decide tonight, which is the exact boundary. The boundaries that we have as proposed are very, very close to what we think, and obviously those are the boundaries that went into the feasibility studies. But the absolute, is this property in or out, can also be part of the plan, and usually is what happens as part of the planning process. Okay, so in your packet, you have an attachment called a timeline of options. And so basically what I'll do tonight is just walk you through the timeline of options so that you can understand what those options are. And just as background, just to kind of recap, at the March 25th meeting, City Council asked staff to bring back the new urban renewal areas or districts as a topic of conversation. And this memo addresses questions and provides supplemental information to support that future discussion. So if folks are curious about looking at the feasibility studies, those are in the City Council public packet from March 25th. Again, City Council meeting, not Urban Renewal Agency meeting. And then tonight is the second time that we have had the opportunity for you to ask questions and review those materials. So staff is seeking council decision of whether or not to move forward with creating new urban renewal area or areas. And as Mr. Chandler mentioned, decisions about how much tax increment fund revenue to collect, which we refer to as maximum indebtedness, and what specific projects can be done, would come to council over the next year of planning and input from the community and the overlapping taxing districts. Recommendation is based on the feasibility studies and the consultant memo in the City Council public meeting packet from the March 25th meeting.
Oops, sorry.
And staff recommends that council proceed with formation of the Roads End Villages Area A with future Area B additional properties once the existing year 2000 urban renewal area comes to an end, and preparation with the intention of formation of the Nelscott Southeast 23rd Street Industrial Mixed Use Area B. The table of options is provided. We also included some additional maps with the aerial imagery as requested. And we wanted to make sure that we mention that in previous council communications, the sunset or end of tax collection for the existing year 2000 urban renewal area had been discussed as happening by the year 2024. That is our legal ultimate drop dead date of how long we can collect tax increment. And staff has revisited the tax revenues, and it looks like the final bond for the existing area will be able to be repaid in the year 2021, which is 3 years earlier than anticipated. And we do have Debbie Bridges, our finance director, here if you do have any questions about that. So there were some recent council questions. If you'd like, I can run through those, or we can move forward to the options. It's up to you.
Well, you might just, if you could, go ahead and answer the questions so we've got those as we, that'd be helpful.
Okay, so since the March 25th meeting and at the March 25th meeting, we had some questions. The first question is, can we begin with Nelscott area first so we can move forward now and begin to develop in 5 years and not just begin to develop it after 5 years? Yes, you may begin with the Nelscott area first, although if you pursue formation of Nelscott area A, which is about $4.5 million of project value, you will not have the ability to do Nelscott area B in the future. Elaine has said that technically we can, but we would have to form an entirely new area. So for the sake of the decision this evening, you would want to choose area A or B, and then, sometime in the future, depending on how one or two or none of the existing urban renewal area acreages and assessed value calculations are going, you can always look at other areas of the city if you decide that you want to create another district. As I mentioned, Salem has 7, Newport has 4 separate districts, Portland has 20-some, I think. So this is a tool that can be used, in focused areas if you have certain project objectives. And so tonight we're really just talking about the 2 areas, A or B. And at this point, if you were to do A, you wouldn't be able to do B probably for several years, I think.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, but when we talked to the in Nelscott, B includes A?
Yes.
Is that okay? So
Nelscott B is basically Nelscott A plus additional properties.
So if you do Nelscott B, you're doing A?
That's correct. Same thing with Roads End. Roads End B includes Roads End A. The catch is that you would have to do A first with Roads End, and then you would add a few properties later that would basically equal Roads End B. Okay, due to the complexity in forming Nelscott area A or B, which includes an urban growth boundary swap, possibly, and annexation, it is likely that area A or B would not be able to be formed for 3 to 5 years. During this time, Roads End Villages area could get underway and begin collecting TIF revenues before development happens in the city's villages properties. Are there any questions on that question and answer? Okay. The second question was, which exact projects could be done with the amount of funds available? That's a great question. We did our best to do some estimates based on what we'd heard and some rationale of why we'd even think about using urban renewal in these parts of town. I did a separate attachment with some help from Elaine on some estimated project costs for each of those two areas. And let's see, that is attachment C. Basically, there isn't a shortage of projects. Being that Rhodes End has Logan Road, which is one way in and out, and Villages has one main road that's in and out that's now connected through Lincoln Palisades, which is great for connectivity and alternate routes. It is the main road in and out. And then Nelscott has 23rd, which is pretty much one road in and out. So you can probably imagine that a lot of the benefits for urban renewal in those areas would be to do some major transportation improvements. And that's just kind of, you know, throwing the spaghetti on the wall kind of thing. So those are not little projects. So for example, for Rhodes End Villages Area A and B, we have a subtotal of about 11 million. And just keep in mind the today's dollars revenue for that area potentially is about 56 million. And then there are other projects that we did not estimate or list, which of course, if you proceed, we would do community visioning and lists and meetings with our stakeholders and overlapping taxing districts to really determine what are those projects and then help to figure out how to prioritize them. And okay, so then moving on to Nelscott Area A, we had a similar amount of projects estimated, just under $12 million. Keep in mind that the revenue for that district is $4.5 million, so we have already exceeded the revenue for that area. And then for Nelscott Area B, we have about 25 million of projects estimated. Half of that, though, is this notion of the Lincoln City Byway, which is a 2.5-mile road to create an alternate route from Highway 101. So that is a whole separate discussion of whether or not that is the right transportation decision. But just so you know, that is what factored into half of that estimated cost. And the today dollar revenue would be about 9 million. So 9 versus 12 or 25, depending on project choice. And then Elaine had also done a memo, attachment D, which covers any taxing district impacts. And that's a lot of the really good financial numbers that I won't get into, but she is here, obviously, if you have questions about those. So let me just bounce back to the questions. So which exact projects could be done with the amount of funds available? That's in your attachment, and we're happy to answer any questions about how we estimated those. Moving on to question 3, for those unfamiliar with the Nelscott Gap Neighborhood Plan adopted by Council in 2017, you can download a copy online, or staff is happy to provide a copy for you. And the Nelscott Gap Neighborhood Plan is basically kind of the foundation of the Nelscott Area A, or the part of Nelscott Area A that is also in B. And urban renewal was identified as a possible funding source for getting that Nelscott Neighborhood Gap Plan off the ground. What is the impact to the overlapping taxing districts? As I mentioned, Elaine had done a consultant memo talking about those impacts. Do you have any questions at this time? It's kind of a lot.
Anything from, okay, we'll move on. Oh,
I just have one. Because we were able to pay down our current bond by 3 whole years in time, then I'm assuming that if we select A and then B of Rhodes End, the Villages, and that because the Villages has no tax base currently, that as that gets up and going, being built on, that would increase that tax base, I'm not sure if I'm using the right words here, terminology, then we would have the opportunity to pay that off sooner as well. Is that true?
So in our projections, we worked with Allison and your staff on trying to estimate the value of that new development, and that estimated value is included in our projections. So if they go, and that's why there's such a healthy amount of money available in that district, is because it is predicated on having the district adopted before that development occurs. It captures that development for your assessed value increase and thereby gives you the money for the projects.
So does that evaluation include the 20% that would be affordable?
Yes.
Okay.
We got as close to reality as we could, given market factors and changing construction costs and things like that. Yeah. So, and Elaine, correct me if I'm wrong. Oh, yeah. I think so just because we're paying off the bond earlier than anticipated for our existing area, all it would do is give us the option to use more acreage in urban renewal sooner, rather than impact bonding, because bonding is discrete for each urban renewal area. Yes? Yes.
Follow-up question?
Just
Okay.
a follow-up. Then does it mean that, okay, we're 3 years ahead of ourselves. Does that mean that the other districts will get their money sooner, 3 years? Okay, there's where I was after. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Mark, did you have a question? Riley?
I'm here.
No,
For the record.
well, yeah, thank you.
But was there, I remember we could do a smaller roads end with Nelscott A and B after a few years, and I'm wondering if by paying, now that we see that we can pay it off sooner, will that negatively impact that possibility that way, or?
No, closing your existing district sooner is only a positive
Oh,
benefit.
okay.
And it doesn't negatively impact any of your decisions here.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and move through the options. 4 options. Number 1 is.
Allison, could I,
Uh-huh.
before you do that, you know, when the slide before, you had the slide of all the things that we're not looking at. So the slide that's missing is what we really are doing, and it's just to decide, on the district, and certainly not the geography, not the boundaries, not the dollar amount, not the time frame. So it's just a yes to go forward and how we go forward, or a no and we don't go forward. Is it? So as you're making the options, that's what I want to make sure myself and the council knows what we're really thinking about. It's 1, if we want to do it at all, and then 2, if we do, in what staging?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'm not sure that Councilor Hoagland was here when we went through that, what we're doing and what we're not doing tonight. Were you here then?
I don't believe so, no.
Might be helpful if he
So-
can see that other slide too.
You know, there is a penalty for showing up late.
10 push-ups? I'll do it right now.
But
Sorry, I thought I had my laptop and I didn't.
That's right. What, would you mind, Allison, just
Okay.
so what you missed then is what we're not looking at
Okay.
is, and maybe if you could, I hate to take you back, but really it would help Councilor Hoagland.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I see. Makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
No, all right, so now we can then move ahead.
Okay, but now I have a question.
Okay.
So go back again to what we're not doing. Okay, down on the 4th, not what we're doing, form urban renewal districts. We're not doing that.
You have to have a plan, an actual physical plan that's keeps you up late at night reading, to form the district.
Okay,
Right
so,
now,
so wait, hold that thought. So we're planning to form an urban renewal district? Is that what we're here for?
yes,
Okay, I got it.
yes, or create a plan to form a district. So if you decide, if you, yes.
Mr. Mayor,
The
Mr. Mayor,
steps
An easier way to say this is that you are looking at 4 options on how to go forward with the creation of one or more districts. And what we're asking you is to pick an option. Now, the option that the staff is recommending is option number 1. And we'll explain more why that we think that is the preferable option. But to really kind of zero it down into what you're looking at, there are 4 options that we have before you tonight. And what we're looking at is, say, pick one of these options. Here's the pros and cons of each of those.
Okay. All right, council?
Okay,
All right.
I got it.
Okay.
Okay. So in your packet, you have this lovely, very small font document.
Very small.
It fits on one page, though.
By the way, you can enlarge on your computer screen so you can read it.
Okay, so option number 1 is to move both projects forward. So Roads End Villages Area A, this is actually just to cover the 4 areas. We'll get into the options after I recap on the 4 areas. Area A for Roads End Villages could move forward now, since all of the property is located within the city limits. Creating a new urban renewal plan would take about 1 year and go before City Council for adoption. Then the new area would be formed. In 2021, when we pay off our existing bond, Area B could occur to bring in additional properties for projects. So moving on to Roads End Villages Area B. Area B could move forward in 2021 once the existing year 2000 area is done. This would allow projects to be done on the highway if that were part of the plan. And Area A or Area B, if done, would mean about $56 million in projects. Any questions on Roads End? Okay. Nelscott Area A could move forward once annexation and a swap of properties in and out of the UGB or urban growth boundary are complete. This could take 3 to 5 years to prepare the plan. Area A, if done, would mean $4.5 million in projects. If Area A is formed, Area B would no longer be an option in the future. And by that, I mean to add it to the same area. You can always look and see if it's possible to do a 3rd urban renewal area, but that's a whole nother meeting. And Nelscott Area B, which includes Area A, could move forward once annexation and a swap of properties in and out of the urban growth boundary are complete. So the same things would be needed to do Area B as in Area A, because Area B includes Area A. This could take 3 to 5 years to prepare the plan, same as Area A. And Area B, if done, would mean about $9 million in projects.
Mr. Mayor, so Area B, the projection is that much more revenue would be generated in Area B. Can that additional funding that derives from just the B portion be used in A?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
It would basically be one urban renewal area. So,
So in other words, we could form B, not do anything in B, focus on whatever improvements we want to pay for in A, and we would have a lot more money to do that with.
yes.
Mr. Mayor, this is why it's significant when you say that if you choose Area A of the Nelscott area, you cannot do Area B. You could create it in a new district, but separate districts can't swap money back and forth. You can only move it within the district. So that's why when we say if you choose A, you could get B, but you cannot use the money from B in A or vice versa. By choosing this option, then you have the ability, more flexibility in how you move those funds around for the projects.
So, given that, if we help me then understand back at the Roads End Villages, we talked about doing A first and then later doing B. What's the difference between that and Nelscott?
The difference is
Okay,
The state statute. The state statute only allows you to add 20% of your original urban renewal acreage to your urban renewal area.
Oh,
In the roads and villages, that B is less than 20%. In Nelscott, it is not.
gotcha, thank you.
That's the difference.
That helps, okay. Okay. And the reason we need to, if we chose whatever option, back to the villages and Roads End, is because until the current urban renewal district goes away, we don't have enough capacity, land, or percentage-wise, to do A and B. And
We can't do B now because the Highway 101 properties are in our existing area. So we have to wait until that goes away before we can pull those
Gotcha.
back into urban renewal.
Gotcha, okay. Okay, good. If I can, and I know we're not doing boundaries, so I won't ask it at all, because boundaries discussion could go later, right? So it won't matter. Okay. That's
But
clear.
But we need to understand what boundaries we're thinking about. We're not
Yes, the boundaries
deciding-
in concept.
We're not
Yep.
deciding them, but in
Yes.
order to make yes or no, we need to know what we're talking about.
And okay, I guess my concern is in the villages and Roads End is that could we not be doing the same thing as bringing in land into the city in order to enhance a roadway to 101?
Yes.
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 I
Yes,
know
we
better
can.
than asking, yes and no questions, so, sorry. So help me to Councilor Mark's question. We could do that when we're talking about boundaries and reasons. I guess my concern again is kind of the same thing that we kind of have with Nelscott, is the time that it takes to annex. And I guess I'm answering my own question, but we'd have plenty to do in the current, or the Roads End Village is the first one that
Yes.
before we add more property. Okay.
Yeah, and if this area goes forward, I think that there will need to be some discussions about the acreage, the impact on taxing districts, and what Area A acreage would allow addition of other properties that are not identified on the map. For example, a road that would connect to the east to Highway 101. Really what we intended with Area A is that all the properties would be in the city because we anticipate that development will happen soon. We did not want to pass the opportunity of capturing that additional increment through those development projects. And so if there were annexations or urban growth boundary situations that we're talking about for Nelscott, it would add time to forming a district, which means we could have less revenue. So that was what our intention was so far, was to have one possibility that could hit the ground running quick, which, as we know, quick, if all the stars align, 1 year is reasonable to get the plan in place and have you consider formation of the area.
Okay. Other questions from council? Yep, please.
Just clarify, okay, moving forward, we say, just.
Could you pull your mic into it?
I'm sorry. Okay, so hypothetically, we just say, yes, today, move forward. But that would not, so it would not affect, it wouldn't start until 2021 and 2022, is that correct? As far as the tax base and the special districts and.
If you did Roads End A, it could start in 2020 because
Oh, it could,
when
okay.
it would be basically about a year from now.
Okay.
And if you were to do Nelscott Area A or B, it would probably take about 3 to 5 years to get a plan in place and set everything up to basically the same situation that Rhodes End is, which is everything's in the city, in order to form the district.
Okay. Okay, because this table started 2021. So
That's
fine.
fiscal year end 2021.
Got it.
And that's just, our finance guy loves to do fiscal year end, so sometimes that's confusing to people. So it's fiscal year 20 through 21 because of the way the fiscal year end goes over calendar years.
Okay. That helps. Thank you.
So if you look at option number 1, the green box on your 5.5-point font chart, you will see that if you move both plans forward, the Rhodes End Villages Area A and B, we would spend the next year creating a plan for Area A with the intention of bringing in B, and then in 2020 to 2021 fiscal year, we would adopt Area A plan. The black box that is kind of domineering for a reason. It is the sunset or the finishing of the year 2000 plan, which then means to the right of that black box, we would start collecting TIF revenue. And then you're right, Diane, there's the 2022 to 23 add properties after the year 2000 plan sunsets. So we would basically add the properties as soon as the sunset was complete.
Okay.
And then we would start projects in years 5 to 10 for the Rhodes End Villages Area A and B.
I have kind of a overriding question. This is my, urban renewal 101. So let's say we do this and we start collecting TIF revenue. Now, when you look at the chart of revenue, the dollar amounts are pretty small in the first few years, and then they grow. But have we, what's the word, issued or sold a bond at that point? No. Okay. We're not paying back a bond yet. How does that fit in?
That fits in once you start getting enough revenue to debt service a bond, and that's why Allison says we start doing projects in years 5 to 10, because at year 5, typically you have enough money to be able to go out to either a lending institution or issue a bond that says we have enough money to provide debt service on this amount of a bond. So that doesn't usually happen until about year 5.
And I think maybe this was what Councilor Hinton was getting at earlier, and what we're seeing now with the existing plan is that as the years go by, it's possible that revenue comes in much faster than anticipated because we're all conservatives and we try to keep the dollar amount low. And if that happens, then we can pay the bond off sooner. And that's what's
correct.
happening now.
That's correct.
Okay. You got it.
101. I think you're ready for 201.
Pass.
Okay, so if both plans move forward, an urban renewal plan would be created for Rhodes End Villages Area A while working on Nelscott Area A or B annexation and urban growth boundary swap. The Rhodes End Villages plan would go before City Council for adoption. Then the TIF collection would begin with project planning for Rhodes End Villages, and an urban renewal plan would be created for Nelscott Area A or B. In 2021, properties in the Rhodes End Villages Area B could be added. In 2022, the Nelscott Area A or B plan would go before City Council for adoption. In 2023, the Nelscott Area A or B would begin TIF collection. And in years 2025 to 30, there would be enough funding to begin construction of public improvements in the Rhodes End Villages area. In 2028 to 2033, there would be enough funding to begin construction of public improvements in Nelscott Area A or B.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I have been asked recently, this is very ambitious, and it involves both the creation of a new district, immediately the beginning with the creation of a new district, plus the process of annexation and urban growth boundary swaps and things like that. Would our staff be able to accomplish this amount of work that is available to us? There's 5 departments that would be involved with this. And of course, there's the Urban Renewal Department, but there's also my department, finance, planning, and the public works or the engineering part of it. All would have some part of this at some point in time. Allison would be overseeing it all the way through, but every one of those groups would have significant work that would be involved in this. Well, the answer, can we do that, is yes, if we're focused and we stay focused on accomplishing this and not get a lot of external things that are pulling us away to work on things that may seem important at the moment, because this is more of a long term, but these little things that come in that seem more important. So that's the only thing that I would say about this, is for us to really go forward on this, it would require us to really stay focused on it. There's a lot of public meetings, a lot of things that need to be done to do this properly.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to option number 2, which is Roads and Villages area moving forward. This would be an urban renewal plan would be created for Roads and Villages Area A. The Roads and Villages plan would go before City Council for adoption. TIF collection would begin with project planning. And in 2021, properties in the Roads and Villages Area B could be added. Yep. In 2023, there would be enough funding to begin construction of public improvements in Roads and Villages, and you would have a future option. The process to create a plan for Nelscott Area A or B could be started anytime after the year 2021, which, as we discussed earlier, it's very likely that even if we drop every other project we have, I don't know that we could form and plan Nelscott Area A or B by 2021. I think it will take 3 to 5 years to do the planning and set up Nelscott Area A or B to provide a plan to you for formation of that area. Option number 3 is Nelscott Area A moves forward. Annexation and UGB swap processes would begin to prepare for Nelscott Area A, and a plan would be created. In 2022, the Nelscott Area A plan would go before City Council for adoption. In 2023, the Nelscott Area A would begin TIF collection. In years 2028 to 33, there would be enough funding to begin construction of public improvements in Nelscott A. And we want to note again that Area B could not occur. I said ever, but that's true if you wanted to add it. If you wanted to create a separate urban renewal area, you could. But that would depend on doing another feasibility study and looking at acreages and assessed value. So we don't want to say that it could or couldn't happen, but it's best at this point in time, if you are interested in Nelscott, to choose either A or B. And then the future option could be that Roads and Villages area could be planned and formed at any time after 2021. You have to keep in mind, though, that if you wait on that area, you may see development happen before an urban renewal area is formed, which means that you would have less TIF revenue, which means you could do less projects. And the last option is number 4, which is Nelscott Area B moves forward. Annexation and UGB swap processes would begin to prepare for Nelscott Area B, and a plan would be created, so same process as Nelscott Area A. And then in 2022, the Nelscott Area B plan would go before City Council for adoption. In 2023, the Area B could begin TIF collection. Projects could start in 2028 to 33. And if Nelscott Area A is formed, Area B cannot occur ever as part of the same area. And again, you have the same future option if you do Nelscott Area A or B, that you can create Roads and Villages area. You just may have reduced revenue. What would you like me to go back to, or what questions can we answer?
Council, Counselor?
I have one question, but it's for Mr. Chandler. When you're talking about, that this will take quite a bit of staff resources, I just have to say this because I thought of it. In some of the background information that was provided to us, and when that first, when the 2020 plan was, I think that's correct.
Oh, yeah,
What-
yes, the year 2000 development plan that was formed in
Oh, the
1988.
Okay.
Super clear.
Okay, that one. When that one was formed, there was a list of people who had helped generate the ideas and all of that. But at the time, I noticed that Alice's name was listed, but she was the assistant director. Would you have to consider something like that as far as staff resources to do?
Might. I have not thought that all the way through completely, but
Just curious.
but we might. Interesting enough, we're not proposing it for this year, but we have had some discussions on Allison's assistant becoming a full-time position, or having two assistants. So possibly, but I'm not prepared to answer that definitively right now.
The reason I ask is there would be considerably more, I'm thinking, work and time needed to generate a new one rather than what's happening now as we're going through the projects. So anyway, just a question.
So this would be, if it was an ordinance, it'd be deliberation time. I think when we were talking last meeting, or the 25th, we got to this point, and we're trying to think about these options that were nicely put this way. I heard, I think, so I'm not taking this as for granted, that council wanted to do both. Seemed to be the tenor of the discussion. The key was timing, and for me anyway, I think these options cleared, that kind of timing, because we knew and know we have to do a lot of work in the Nelscott B of annexation and swaps. So as far as I'm concerned, I could go with option one and make sure the Nelscott B was the component that is, and if I hear it right, it's really not in the district or not forming a second district yet. It's getting ready to. So we'd be, if we went that way, we'd be giving direction versus Roads End Villages means get the plan in place. Is that how? Okay. Other thoughts, Deanna?
I just want to make sure I understand. So option number one, which is where I was going as well, because then we can do the best of both worlds or ends of the city, almost the end. But so option one is getting up and going with Roads and Villages Area A, and then B would tag along after 2021, and at the same time get ready for the Nelscott B. Is that correct? Then I would support that.
Yeah, I'm not making the motion. I'm just making sure we're, at least that's where you're good. But I think that's actually what we were struggling with on the 25th too, what the, how these might balance. Does anybody have anything, different or want to weigh in on, a different way?
I think number one fits all of our concerns and direction.
I concur.
Diane,
Agree.
I agree. Is there, should we at least talk about the impact on the other taxing
Well,
districts? especially since we have a fire
normally
chief?
we would, but that's why I went with the no, we aren't even talking about it
Yeah.
yet, because as I made notes, that means what we'd talk about is the dollars, we'd talk about the time frame, we'd talk about, and all that is what would impact other districts. So until we're ready to hit those things, but
We're certainly not taking any dollars away
new,
today.
new. Right.
At the earliest, it would be 1 year when you form the district.
And it's, if the district, if that geography is now in 2019 paying taxes to those districts, that amount of tax money after the plan is, after the district is formed, continues to go to those districts. It's only the addition above.
Correct.
So we're not really swiping all that money away from them.
Correct. And typically, when you start your public process, and Allison and I have talked about this, you have a task force that guides that process, and you invite the other taxing districts to be part of that task force. So they get input on the boundary, on the projects, on the time frame, and to talk about what projects they think are most important and will be impactful for them.
And I noticed on that list that Lincoln City taxes are included as well. So we're using Lincoln City tax increment money to pay that bond. It's not just, which is really the bulk of the fund.
It's usually between a quarter and a third,
Okay.
the city tax rate.
You're going to be affecting Mr. Chandler.
And then additional
Right,
direct staff.
as well.
Yeah.
So Elaine, I guess I was under the impression, so help me, when a tax base is frozen, I thought it was at a lower number than the actual, so it's at the actual assessed value
Correct,
today?
correct.
Okay, that's.
And the assessed value of all real, personal, manufactured, and utility properties.
Okay.
So the assessor determines what that assessed value is at the point that the plan is adopted, and then all the taxing districts continue getting their taxes off of that.
That-
And then it's that growth number that the urban
Goes
renewal
into the
agency
bucket.
gets.
Okay. Good. Well then, with that, and I'd hate to even think of having a short meeting, but
Come on, I would
we could,
win. 5
we
minutes
could
ago, I would've
entertain a
won.
motion.
I think
if somebody wanted to make a motion.
I think I have this one.
All right.
I've been-
Judy,
She's
please,
been working on
I've
it.
been working on it, okay.
take it.
Okay, help me out if it's wrong. I move to approve the creation of Roads End Urban Renewal Area Plan A and B, and direct staff to begin the preparation and planning for urban growth swap and annexation for the creation of a new urban renewal area in Nelscott B. Did I do it?
Could I do a friendly amendment?
Oh, an amendment? Okay. Before it's seconded.
Before we second it. When you mention Roads End, could you also do Roads End Villages, so we know what we're talking about?
Roads End Villages,
That's what it's called.
Urban Renewal Area Plan A and B.
Does that seem to fit?
Option A.
That's option one on the plan,
Option one.
correct? No, it's option one.
Do we need to be clear?
Need a second, I'll second.
One as stated in
Okay,
the
we have a-
timeline of options.
A second? We have a motion with a second? Let's make sure.
Is it
I
right?
think we need to clarify it.
I have a question. I have
Okay.
something to bring up. So if you're moving to create it, I would rather you say create a plan for review,
Okay.
because to me, somebody could misinterpret to say create meaning you've already approved it
Ah,
and you
okay.
haven't. So you're creating an urban renewal plan for review. If you wouldn't mind changing that, I would feel more comfortable.
Are you all right with that amendment?
Sure.
Sure.
I'm
And
Don't ask me to say it.
Kathy, are you, you're able to catch that? Got it? And
Right.
we have a second
Second, yeah.
on that amendment.
Second amendment.
So roll call, please.
Anderson,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Hinton,
Yes.
Hoagland,
Yes.
Coos?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
And Parsons?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great. Thank you very much. So, again, we will expect to see you in a year then, is that it?
Oh, no.
Uh,
We'll be back with a plan of action and meetings so that you're well apprised of what will happen next. Yeah,
Good.
I think that'll be the next thing, is an update for you to see what all needs to be done.
All right. But Elaine, thank you for coming down. I appreciate it, because
Pleasure.
that's,
You could have given me some sunshine, but other than
yeah,
that,
well,
it's great.
next time, next time.
Mr.
Always next time.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
before Elaine leaves the desk over there, I just wanted to give you a heads up. I'm on the planning committee for the League of Oregon Cities annual conference, and 3 different cities mentioned your name when I said, should we consider urban renewal as a session? So I just wanted to give you a heads up.
Thank you, that's nice. I always enjoy doing that, so.
And where is it this year? In Bend. Okay. All right. Then if we return to our agenda, any city manager reports? And no public comments? We see, hearing none? Chief, not yet. We'll wait for you. I got more questions now than I had. Oh. You can use our time, with Elaine. Then comments from city councilors. Diane, Judy?
Just the letter that went out from the City Urban Renewal Agency I thought was excellent. I think it was sent to everybody, is that right, in the whole city, or is it just city council? In the districts? Uh-huh. In the urban renewal districts, yeah, I thought that was excellent.
Great,
Me
good.
too.
Mitch, nothing? Deanna?
I do, this much worth.
Ooh.
So just sit back. Okay, I just, there was a spring League of Oregon City conference in Ashland this last few days, which I attended, and 3 other counselors did too. And this conference was focused on marijuana. I just have a few little highlights here, and others can certainly chime in. And the focus was tax and managing the actual cash money, homeland security, black and gray market, growing it consumes a lot of water, and other issues and concerns such as Councilor Hoagland and Parsons' recycling of the containers idea, which got a big thumbs up from the keynote speaker, who was Billy Williams, the U.S. attorney for the District of Oregon, and he was excellent, and he had a lot to say about the subject. Other topics covered were wildfires, not flowers, land management practices and future needs, getting bonds passed, the benefits of doing that in May or November, depending on what your issue is, controversial public meetings, ideas such as hold more community meetings versus just public hearings. Public hearings can result in winners and losers. Community meetings are a discussion with citizens. I think we do that really well. Community conversation about housing needs. There was discussion about smaller housing, so consider 800 square feet versus the usual 2,200 square feet. Considered mixed use, as we've been talking about, but understand that the commercial part of it goes very, very slowly. So I'm not sure about that. And also a consideration with working with the Housing Authority, and those, it turned out, work as a great asset for Central Point. And government interactions with the homeless individuals. Other interesting facts and discussions I took away. Staff and elected officials relationships. Staff to elected officials and vice versa. And the ideas were hold work sessions and hold one-on-one meetings with each other. So thank you, Mr. Chandler, for offering those to us. The limit to this conference was 150 attendees. 170 were there. There were mayors, councilors, city managers, city attorneys, and city recorders. and the closest to us with all 4 categories was Newport. I think they even had 3 counselors there that I recognized. Coastal cities have older populations that move closer to medical facilities for seniors. And my favorite takeaway was a quote from Matt Brinkley, Medford's planning director, who said, "Look at housing as infrastructure." And I liked it so much that I emailed it directly to Mr. Chandler.
Councilor Hoagland and Councilor Parsons went with the 3 of you? Great.
And Miss.
Oh, and Judy. Oh, great.
We stayed away from each other.
Okay, good.
Not to worry.
You didn't travel in the same car?
No, just,
And even stay at the same hotel.
Okay, all right,
there you go.
good, thank you. Well,
That's
thank
my
you for going, all 4 of you, and, because I think those things do help and certainly enriches you, and I appreciate for bringing it back. Councilor Mark? Nothing? All right.
Today.
Councilor Hoagland?
Yeah, I do, thank you. And from the conference, some of the takeaways in regards to marijuana, and I believe, and if this is a place to consider the difference in a zero tolerance versus a no, what's the word? Impairment clause. And there's a very distinct difference with distinction between CDL and firearms. But, so there would be 2 classes in that HR policy. So that's something that, with council, if we could direct staff, if that's something to look at with HR, or have a work session about the differences in impairment versus zero tolerance. Some of the concerns that came up in the conference were an employee was talking with another employee that they had an OMMP card and that it's for their medicinal use of marijuana. The employee who was told the HR director, who then called the League of Oregon Cities attorney and saying, hey, or it might have been.
It was CIS.
Sorry, CIS, thank you. And then how do you do that? And how is it written? And so I would like, and I think it's important to look at the no impairment with classification to the job description and a zero tolerance policy. As I understand it, currently it's a zero tolerance policy, and I don't think moving forward that that's the best position for this city to be in. So that is something I would like to bring up and ask and see if council would like to direct staff to look at that.
Well, before you do, I guess, I think, Mr. Chandler, I think conversations we've had that HR this certainly is on the top of the list. And are they already pursuing some of this in order to come back to council?
We've been working, right now it is a zero tolerance policy, and it has been a concern of ours, and the effect that this could have on our employment. We have been working a little bit with CIS to find how we develop that language, and one of the keys is how you determine impairment and how that becomes determined. And so CIS has been working a little bit with us. We haven't worked on it for a few weeks, but it's been a topic.
I mean,
So I guess what I want to help with Mr. Hoagland, that nothing really needs to, do you need direction from council, or are you already pursuing
No, I don't think we
this?
need
Where-
direction, because we're already pursuing it. Your support is great, because it is an area of concern that we've all expressed, and so we're moving forward with it. But so your support is very helpful.
And one other thing that was mentioned, and correct me please if I'm wrong with this, but I can't even remember who mentioned it, but one of the speakers mentioned that there is a new type of testing being developed so you can have a better idea of which.
if it's in your system, yes or no, or the quantity of that.
Yeah,
right,
and if
right.
it's the THC level or something, so it can be easier for, say, the police department, or if you're using heavy equipment or something, that it can be more easily determined, but that's in the future, it's not here yet.
The issue that we really have with this is with alcohol, there is an established limit that is accepted. That does not, to my knowledge, that does not exist yet with marijuana. And so that's kind of, is how do you determine what impairment really is? And so that's the thing that we're working with CIS, is to find find that answer.
Mr. Hoagland, you can advertise for Rotary and your public debate of taking plastic
Yes,
on. Is that,
absolutely.
you know?
That is this
Yeah,
Wednesday.
Is that this Wednesday?
Yes, sir.
Lunch?
Yes, sir, at Salashan.
At Salashan?
Yes, sir.
Public is invited
Yes,
for
sir.
$13 mere
Yes, sir.
lunch?
Yes, sir.
And could hear you
On a
take the
panel
plastic
of-
stand, huh?
Yes, absolutely. It's also, there'll be a member from North Lincoln Sanitary and one member from the Surf Riders Foundation. So that is at Salashan, 12 o'clock this Wednesday. You do have to pay for it.
You know, I don't want you to be bashful.
No,
want
no,
you
I
to get up.
appreciate it. Thank you.
You know, if you can, I've got a couple of things. One, and Councilor Hinton really hit, as you all know, I continue to do Coffee with the Mayor every week. This Wednesday in the morning, coffee at 9 a.m. At 60s Cafe. I'll be doing Coffee with the Mayor, and certainly any councilors are welcome as long as there's not 4 of us. So, because this definitely gets into city business, but you're more than welcome. And I would like to share with you some good news. If you recall from our meeting last week, last Monday, a gentleman by the name of Gordy Podrasky came to us under public comments and was raised a concern about citizens or visitors climbing on the beach banks and cliffs. Happy to report that he's one happy camper at the moment. The next day, signs went up along the beach, and he actually was out, noticed them, talked to those from Public Works that were putting the signs up, and thanked them. I happened to wait until Wednesday to call him because I wanted to make sure they got up, and he was ecstatic. And so, you know, one of those, he's actually from Colorado, been here a little over a year, and he was just surprised and pleasantly pleased at how, you know, a citizen could raise an issue, and in this case done faster than he expected. So special thanks to Public Works, and it was an easy one. Yeah.
Yeah,
please.
absolutely. And in the conference, Mitch and I met a Newport City Councilor who is one of the members who patrols the beach, and I believe he and I will both be patrolling the beach with, and just as because it's open that way to go for it. So,
Good.
and it's
Well, then I have another one, if I can. This is another citizen brought to me a concern he had at Northwest 34th Street, the access to the beach at Northwest 34th. If you'll remember, that's a small parking lot. We've lowered the speed limit through there at 25. His concern was the access to the actual beach because it's a rise and dip, and citizens, tourists seem to play right there in the sand. And as he and I were there physically and talking about it, and actually a mother and a couple of mothers with children came and had the gall to start playing right there in front of the access. Because, of course, I was being a doubter of saying, you know, this is a roadway. Anyway, I happened to speak with the mothers and just curious why they chose this spot to play with their children. And, you know, you get the standard answers, it's the beach and it's nice and stuff. And I pointed out the roadway and said, are you not concerned about traffic coming? They didn't even realize it was an access for traffic, even though there were parking signs out on the beach. But, so, actually, long story short, you know, we worked with Oregon State Parks to no avail, and chose to take it upon ourselves with the help of, in this case, Parks and Rec. You'll now notice a sign, a nice big yellow sign that cautions drivers from the parking lot going onto the beach that there's people playing right in front of you. On the other side of the sign is actually another sign that cautions players on the beach that cars are approaching. So we think we got it both ways. The citizen is ecstatic that, again, we could come up with a solution he feels better for the safety of our citizens. So, long story, as much as we may not enjoy what is being said in front of us at times at these public comments, they most of the time citizens mean well, and we're certainly eager to hear them because we can't be everywhere, and we can foster some results. So with that, I'm ready to go home. Now you have something.
Since I'll try to make it quick, since we are talking about beaches and all, it is baby seal season, and a lot of people think the baby seals need help when really the worst thing you can do is approach them. So please do not touch the baby seals on the beach.
Great.
I have one more.
Okay.
We're still working on, and hopefully we will still be able to encourage 2 tiny houses. Friday the night.
Community days.
For community days. We've narrowed the time frame, we think, from Friday the 19th through Sunday the 21st.
Oh, okay.
Because we need volunteer support, and that's where we had our slots filled, so.
Good.
I did. And the house that they had to bring is going to the California where the fire happened. And he can't bring it, so
There you go.
I'm sorry.
All right.
Okay, down to 1 tiny house, maybe.
All right. Well,
One quick thing I can add.
please.
I just want to add to everybody's Wednesday schedule. Wednesday at 3:30 is middle school track and field's home meet at Taft High School. It's their one and only home meet they do a season. So
What time?
at 3:30.
3:30. Good. All right. Nice to hear. All right. Thank you all for your service. Take care.
Thank you. I had a doctor appointment at 1:30 Wednesday. It was